Water. What's up, you guys? Welcome to TT Calling. Today, we're going to be talking about sinners. So, if you have not watched the movie Sinners, this is your opportunity to click off. If you're watching this during the live stream, we're going to get started with the channel messages that I got, the downloads that I got. And I'm also going to be sharing my perspective around the movie, how I feel about it, and also getting your perspective. So if you are in the live or you're watching this on replay, please feel free to drop a comment, interact during the live. Let me know what your personal perspective is about the movie, how you feel about it, what you draw from it, and just have some conversation. I got popcorn. Okay. I really wish I was able to watch this with you guys because I watched it over the weekend and it's Friday. I watched this Sunday. Yes, I did. I watched this Sunday and it's Friday and I'm still tweaking. So, dreams, visions, all that great jazz. And I had nobody to talk to about it. So, I'm coming here to you guys on this channel because y'all are my spiritual soul tribe. And yeah, typically when I get channel messages and downloads and stuff like that, I pull out my journal, I record, and I get all that energy out. This time, I was not able to just journal about it. Like, this is the type of movie that activates you. So if you are not looking for activation, if you are not looking to have a spiritual awakening, if you're not looking to read between the lines and go deeper and dive down rabbit holes, it's wild. Okay, the stuff I'm gonna tell you is wild to me because I mean it feels like a whole new world. But if that's not an experience that you care for, definitely don't watch the movie because that's exactly what you're gonna get. I don't know how. I don't know how he did it. Typically, movies. I love movies. For those of you that know me, I love movies. I'm always referencing movies. I'm always referencing songs in all of my channel messages because it's through the frequency of sound, okay? Clairaudience, that really stimulate my senses and the frequency that source, the universe communicates through. And it be happening real fast. So I feel like there's a generative energy that's being stimulated, okay, within us on all fronts. And like I said, not many movies, yes, for entertainment purposes, I definitely feel like that was an A plus. Okay, the entertainment part of it didn't pull me outside of the movie. It actually helped me dive deeper. And there was a lot of numerology, color, sound, numerology, the way the camera was moving. All those things really helped hone in. And so I've only seen it one time, and I promise you guys I want to see it again. But I want to wait because I wasn't expecting to be meditating outside and kind of like off in La La Land. So, is there anyone here that has already seen the movie? What's up, Carla? Hey, Elite. Rainbow, the one with Michael B. Jordan. Yes, the one with him playing twins. I didn't know about it till I'm seeing comments online about it. Now I'm intrigued. Yes, 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 yes. So, will I be watching this tomorrow? Have a blessed day. Have a blessed day, Elite. I'm full attention. Okay, awesome. Oh, I plan on seeing it, been ads and everything. So there's a lot of people that haven't watched it yet. Okay, cool. So definitely, if you haven't watched it, go watch it because I'm about to dive into it. And I was really trying to wait because I wasn't sure if I wanted to share my perspective of the movie, either through pre-recording or if I wanted to make like a whole video and add pictures. And it really just became too much, and that overstimulated me. Not gonna lie. Like, doing all that overstimulated me. I'm good at talking and rambling. So take what resonates, leave the rest. What's up, Uncle? I can't believe nobody over here has seen it. Are y'all kidding me? Happy Friday. Are y'all kidding me? Is my microphone working? That's crazy. I don't want to spoil it for nobody. So definitely, if you don't mind, some people can tolerate spoilers. I don't mind, because I know one thing I can tell you about this movie. If you go into it expecting expecting to only get one thing from it, that ain't the movie. This is definitely a movie, like I said. It will activate something in you. I can't explain it, and it's for different reasons. There's so much symbolism in the movie, and yeah, so I do have some talking points that, Spirit channeled with me while I was outside. I'm gonna mention those, but yeah. What's up, Spice Lover? Happy birthday. Happy birthday to all the Taurians. I told myself I wanted to go live for Taurus season, but Spirit had other plans for me. All you seen was the name and the cover, and I said I gotta see it. You definitely, if you want an activation, definitely watch it. If you don't watch it. Happy birthday, Monique. All right, so I'm just gonna channel it because, like I said, I'm sure a lot of people haven't seen it, and so they probably won't watch this, and that's fine, because I really have to get the message out. All right, so the channel message that I got from watching the movie, from meditating on it, different things like that, I feel like the movie centers. Is my mic working? Okay, cool. I feel like the movie centers is about a journey into oneself. It's also about striking a chord within you that provokes you to unlock something. That's the best way that I could describe the experience that I personally had from watching the movie. What I feel like is being provoked inside of you is your nirvana, your promised land. It's your freedom. It unlocks something in your genes and your DNA that you probably wouldn't access or experience if you didn't become aware of different things, right? So just like tarot, and that's why I love this movie so much, is because from the beginning to the end, I felt like I was on a fool's journey. I felt like I was having a tarot experience, and there's not a lot of movies that's able to grasp my attention and make me feel as if I am diving deep within my own cellular structure, and I'm having a Lucy type of moment were things that I didn't even know I'm aware of. Um, Things that I didn't know I could see, I can see. So there's so many different bonds, okay, that chain us. And those bonds is coded in our DNA. And I feel like this movie does a wonderful representation of accessing those aspects of oneself, right? So Yes. So that's pretty much what really drew me into the movie. That's what really made me, I think, want to watch it again. Okay. And I have, like, today, I saw a lot of different uploads about the video. I don't know much about the actors and their names, so this movie won't be about talking about the actors and different things like that and how they actually displayed it and so forth. This is going to be about going on a voyage, okay? We're going to go into uncharted territories and explore all the possibilities that this film offers the viewer, okay? Yeah, so I definitely say Sinners is a movie that if you are sensitive, you're spiritual, indulge responsibly. I do not feel like I would watch it again anytime soon, even though I feel the urge to do it. I feel like that's exactly what the movie is is intended to do, to invoke an emotion, to strike a chord within you, to inspire you to do whatever you feel like you want to do. Which brings me to the movie spoilers. Okay. This is what brings me to the movie spoilers. All right. The first movie spoiler that we're going to talk about is the character that I feel is the most important character in the whole movie. And that's Remick. And the reason why I feel like Remick, for those of you that do not know, Remick is the vampire. Remick is the person that you'll see in the movie that is working hard. Like he pretty much shows up and appears because he wants to make it like a cult. Okay? He wants to start a cult, pretty much, of vampires. He wants to start his own little movement, his own little cult, and he wants a lot of the different actors to agree. Okay? And because the objective is to provoke you, and he is also the antagonist in the film, I feel like he spiritually, symbolically, he represents the person that gets you going, the boogeyman theory that we give children when we want them to do something, right? That idea that you got to have something to fear in order to get you to pick something, make a choice, do something. That's the provocation that I felt from the movie. Okay? So, what I feel like he represents as well is he's foreign. Okay? So, he's this Irish man that is a vampire. He was turned centuries ago. And he comes to, it's staged in Mississippi, I think. And he pretty much is fleeing from being hunted down, okay, by some natives. But to that land, to that region, he's pretty much considered foreign. All right, so he's foreign, and so I feel like what he's doing is he's activating his antagonistic perspective is activating like your white blood cells, right? Those are the things that protect you from foreign things that you don't believe in. So I feel like this whole entire movie is about belief systems, right? Which is why in the beginning of the movie, we start with Sammy. He is the musician in the movie. And we start with him at the church. And he's having a pivotal major arcana moment where he's trying to determine if he wants to give up his music. If he wants to put down the guitar, give up the blues, and repent and turn back to Christ. Christianity, the church, right? So everyone in the church is dressed in white, and his father is the preacher. So he's called Preacher Boy. That's like his nickname. And so he had a horrible experience. And he's standing there, and his dad goes, he says a line where he's like, "Put down the guitar, son, and let it go." Okay? It jumps scenes, and we go over to, what part do we go over to? I think we get into like his story, his childhood, different things about Sammy. Okay. What other character? Yeah, so after we get to Sammy, we jump over to Remick, right? So Remick falls out the damn sky. On the top of the houses, there's like these vultures. And in native spirituality, vultures represent change and transformation. That change and transformation is like the buildup to what I feel the entire movie is about. It is about change. It is about transformation. And the bonds that chain us to fate. The bonds that depict and dictate how we respond to situations, how we act, the choices that we're going to make, the fears that guide, that prevent us from trying things, and the antagonist that tempts us and compels us to explore things that we've been taught not to explore based off of our household dynamic, our childhood bonds. All right. So in the movie, the main characters like Sammy, Remick, Michael B. Jordan, he plays Stack and Smoke, if I'm not mistaken. And he's pretty much playing a twin character. And that twin character is in relations with these two feminine energies. So one feminine energy is Annie, and of course she's a spiritual practitioner. And then you have Mary, and she's pretty much in love, right? Borderline lust, but love with slack. So two twins have their love relationship dynamic happening. And then you have, I think his name was Jedediah, and I think that's Sammy's dad. So he's the preacher. Sammy is the preacher's son. The other main character to me was Delta Slim. I feel like Delta Slim, he plays the kind of like the old musician. Like you have that old relative or family member that's always drinking, smoking, or they're just doing the cultural things that's normal. But they have a lot of wisdom because they've seen a lot of trauma, they experienced a lot of things, right? So this is a brief overview, but the main characters to me, I feel like is Delta Slim, right? His perspective is extremely important in the movie. Stack, his perspective is extremely important because he represents, to me, I feel like Stack represents the root chakra, right? He's also dressed in red. So to me, I see Slack as the vibration of the root chakra. Okay, then you have Smoke. He's dressed in blue. I see blue. I see Smoke truthfully as a ghost. Like even though Smoke and Stack are brothers in the film, I interpret that Slack isn't real. Not Slack, but Smoke isn't really there. I feel like Smoke is Stack's alter ego, a way that he copes, like a dual personality. Okay, it also makes me think of like twin flame, your right and left brain. I feel like Stack and Smoke is one person, and that's why instead of getting twins to perform it, I feel like that's why they chose one person to play two personas, because that is very common amongst humanity. To the way we interact and see the world, we have our mother and we have our father. So we have this X and Y thing happening, which navigates us, which dictates what we're going to do, why we're so predictable. The instinctual things that have been passed down through our genes that predicts how we will respond to certain situations, what we will desire, who we're going to be attracted to. And then you have your, who would I say? I'm going to say, I feel like they're like the elder of Delta Slim, he portrays a perspective about, like taking your ancestor words and kind of like making your own life. You know how you have that uncle or that cousin or that random stranger that kind of shows up in your life like a guide. They teach you the game, or they tell you certain things that your parents couldn't per se tell you. That's why I feel like that's like the trinity between the two. And then comes in Sammy. So we'll get to Sammy, but I really wanted to talk about Slack and Smoke because I do feel like Smoke is Slack's anxiety, right? In the film, you'll see Smoke he has PTSD. He pretty much is showing signs in his body language and everything like that. Like he's been through things. There's a scene where Slack is talking to his younger cousin Sammy, and he tells him, what does he say? He pretty much tells him about, how his father died, or X, Y, and Z. But one thing that I noticed about Slack was he was like fully aware. He was like, oh, Smoke actually was the one that did it. Because there was a situation where their dad used to beat them. Okay? And that was their cousins. And so pretty much their dad died. And so Preacher Boy and the father of Smoke and Slack were brothers. So here we have three bonds here. We have an uncle, we have a preacher, and an uncle. Okay? The uncle dies, the preacher lives. Those are two choices, two paths, two walks in life. The twins' dad was considered evil. He was considered like the most evil man ever. And then his brother went to become a pastor. So you had one that took the good path and then one that took the bad supposed path, right? And it was described to be the bad path because he ended up dying, right? So that was weaponized. My dog wanna come in. That was weaponized already psychologically, that if you engage in certain behaviors or you do certain things, that could be your fate. So I feel as if because he went to war, because he came back, because he had all these coping mechanisms, that he was taking on like two personas. Juju, here. Come on, why are you scared? Yes, definitely honor ancestors. So I feel as if Smoke and Stack, from a symbolic standpoint, represents one person with split personalities. Okay? And the reason why I say that is because I often see the love dynamic between divine feminine and the karmic, right? And that typically being more of a lust relationship. So when we're talking about the embodiment and we kind of remove our attachment that we're bonded to as far as the role that they're playing or the character that we're attached to, I feel like they embody this energy of I feel like, what's her name? What is her name? Mary, to me, represents the Lover's card. Okay? If any of y'all know the Lover's card in tarot, she loved Slack without any conditions. She didn't care. You also had Annie, that I feel like she represents the Empress card, right? Because she had a lot of hoodoo practices. She had a lot of knowledge about. You pass my water? She had a lot of water. She had a lot of knowledge about pretty much what herbs to use. So she really, to me, represents the Empress card. And I feel as if Slack and Smoke is one man that has a dual relationship with two women. And I feel as if, based off the trauma that Slack went through, Annie knows that he has this trauma, because we're talking about like history. The way we perceive like cheating and talking to other people now, it was different back then. And I feel like back then there was a lot of psychology that we can really explore when we put ourselves in that setting and we go back to that time. Okay? So, what else? And then the last card, okay, because we're only going to go from the Fool to the Hierophant. All right, so the Hierophant is, of course, the cultural and traditional, well, mainly, I'm going to say the traditional and cultural and secret system that was operating at that time. That representation would be the father, the preacher. It's not working? You need more batteries? Sorry, y'all. Hold on. It probably need more batteries. Where's your game? You want to use that? Oh, you want to do two things at once. Okay, where was I? So let's talk about Sammy. So Sammy to me is the Fool card. Okay. And I feel like all of the main characters that we get to experience in the film are all a part of an experiment that sets us in a room, that allows us to have all these different perspectives in a control setting, right? Because we got our attention, we're watching it, and we're looking at it. And I do feel as if this is like the first film where it kind of does what tarot does for me, right? So without needing the cards, watching that movie, I felt like I was journeying in through myself. And that's where I feel like the activation comes from, because that's what tarot allows. Now, of course, cinema is the easiest way to kind of watch something. It's almost like it's almost like medicine, but candy, so it's sweetened for you to tolerate. But at the same time, I feel like what's happening behind the scenes is similar to the part in the movie where the natives of the land, they come to the people's house and they ask them like, hey, is there somebody in there? Because I don't think you know who this person really is. And they pretty much pull out their gun and they're like, get off my property. So what I also noticed about the natives is they were dressed in all black. And at the church, everyone was dressed in all white. And so there's the duality, the symbolic duality of the sun and the moon interacting with each other on a wide stage. Okay. And I know this sounds like a reach. What movie is that? That's Sinners. Nobody's seen Sinners. Oh my God. So, like I said, where am I? You saw Sinners, Lala? Okay, anyway, let me not get distracted. All right, so let me talk about the 7 energy centers that I feel every character represents. Okay. Delta Slim is the third eye. Stack is the root chakra. Mary is the sacral chakra. Annie is the heart chakra. Sammy is the solar plexus. And communication, which rules the throat, right? We're talking about vampirism and this symbolism around blood, DNA, your throat, communication. Smoke is blue. So he, of course, naturally represents communication, peace, right? Even their characteristics, when you watch the movie, or if you haven't watched it already, their characteristics, the way that they perform, the entire, like, they embody these chakras. You can feel the embodiment of the energy center that they represent. And that's why I feel like they each represent a Kundalini awakening. Okay? The yin and the yang. And the high priestess, it sits in between a white pillar and a black pillar. And the church wears white, and the high priestess, which they only show for a snippet, is the natives, and they wear black. So one thing I can say, I feel like the natives represented spirit, right? Because we can culturally say, you know, natives are they're very connected to spirit, their land. All right. I also noticed that I think in the names that they chose for the pastor dad for the church, he's the only character I think that has a last name. I think his name is Jedediah Moore, which I also thought was interesting that no other character had a last name associated with it. And it automatically made me like curious, like, about the Moors and the fact that they only showed the natives. And since the movies was so packed with like history and like real things and tangible things that you can refer back to, you have the natives of the land and the theory behind, what is it, the curse of Crazy Horse, where it's something about the 7 generations, and then we're talking about 7 chakras, and we're also talking about the reason why we come down on earth, why we descend to ascend, and that whole cycle. So there's just so many like symbolisms, like all sprinkled throughout the movie. It's crazy. And that's why I said there hasn't been a movie like this that's been able to really, like, oh my God, what's that? And yes, on a bond level, and here's where I get into the 666, right? Because I want to explore it from a relationship standpoint, not to demonize it, but from a relationship standpoint of the 6 bonds of dependency, the 6 bonds of codependency, and then the 6 bonds of interdependence, which is the state of peaceful, healthy relationship, which by the end of the movie, Sammy, to me, represents the protagonist, the fool, the person that is the youngest in the entire film. He has a dream. He has a desire. He wants to perfect his craft, right? Many of us have got on this journey because we feel like we don't connect with the bonds of our forefathers, right? We don't connect with the dependent bonds, right? You don't want to be dependent on nobody. You don't connect with the bonds of codependency. And then here you are trying to have your own sense of self-love, self-worth, and the interdependence of the sacral energy allows us to connect with our soul. It allows us to connect with spirit, commune with spirit. But it's outside of the norm of what our 666 genetic molecular makeup tells us that we're supposed to do. Okay? Yeah, you might get a little lost. You watch it for entertainment. But I feel like even if you watch it for entertainment, people still be getting mad because there's bonds around. Well, I feel like on a cultural level, this wasn't displayed, right? There's a lot going on with Latino community or people using this as an opportunity to really say what they've always wanted to say but never had the balls to say it. That's what I feel like the movie invokes. It makes people, gets the conversation going. And so people that have their borderline prejudice, racist, judgmental, crucial, all these different things, you're gonna feel like, oh, you shouldn't do that, or you're gonna reveal your mask. One thing's about this movie, it is like there is no way to say this movie is in fact the devil. And I know when I tell my mom that, she's gonna be like, you have officially lost your fucking mind. But it literally, because that's what the devil is. It deveils, okay? DE dash VIL. It deveils the mask. It deveils our comfort zones that bond us to why we're codependent on each other. Whether it's through the location, whether it's through the emotional attachment. There's also 6 other bonds, okay, that I wrote down. Like, I really, 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 really dive deep into this shit. For real, for real. What else? What else am I missing? So, like I said, there's the bonds of our relationships. There's the bonds of our family dynamics. There's the bonds of our religious and spiritual relationships. And then this movie is like a beautiful poetic way to describe when all of those chakra centers are either balanced or imbalanced. And we got to see how both balanced and imbalanced chakra centers interact with each other from a characteristic perspective. Sammy was what I would consider like a chosen one. But I don't feel like he was at the most important character. I feel like the bad guy being the antagonist, having everyone attack it, really helped Sammy develop the characteristics that he needed to develop so he could continue deveiling. Because in the movie, you're going to see anytime that Sammy uses his gift of music, he's able to pierce the veil of the past and the future. The ancestors from the past, the future descendants of the future, all get to experience one being in a, like all those timelines weave into one. And they're having a moment. And that's what it feels like to commune with spirit. That's what it feels like to be interdependent and experience joy, love, and the expression of that through spirit. That's what it feels like, you know, whether it's your tarot cards, whether it's your guitar, whether it's talking, whatever it is that brings you great joy. Sammy represents the willingness to persevere over all obstacles, no matter what, to be able to experience a life of heaven within on his days here on earth. Even if that meant he had to upset his pastor father, even if that meant that he had to, you know, turn from his cousins and his relationships, even if that meant he had to lose everybody, he was willing to be the lone wolf. He was willing to go by himself, right? And I feel as if is it Remick? I think Remick, by the way, I feel like Remick is a play on gimmick, but I digress. I feel like Remick was the just the right amount of antagonist to take Sammy to the extreme of both ends. And we really don't, as uncomfortable as the antagonist may be, we really don't see just how important. If we didn't have something, when we have like all these different belief systems that keep us from going after our dreams and doing what we want, if we didn't have the antagonist in our life, where would we be? You know what I'm saying? That's how I feel. I feel like, where would we be if that thing didn't irritate you enough for you to get up? If that thing, you know, wasn't trying to change your trajectory, and so you had to prove that you really want it. And so I feel like he is the test. But it gets even more sinister because, yes, Spirit is always telling me the importance of having a villain. Um, and why they're even casted in the story. In the book of life and everything like that. It is the gateway to, it's like the infinity symbol. I see Remick as within, so without, as above, so below. What you gonna do? I wouldn't describe him as the crossroads, but I would describe him as a physical manifestation, because essentially he's dead, right? He's immortal. So pretty much he's a spiritual entity or being that has the ability to pretty much change you for better or for worse. But he doesn't dictate if you are for better or for worse. But he does play devil's advocate. I do feel like he plays that role really, really well. And that's why. So let me tell you my whole plot. So let me bring it all back together. So first I had to tell you what the characters were what I see them as. And now I'm going to tell you why I feel like Remick was even on Sammy's ass during the movie. So what I got from the movie, what I interpreted from the movie is that symbolically, at the beginning, Sammy's father, after he does all his chores, he does all of his responsibilities, he checks on his mom, he checks on his siblings, he goes underneath the bed to go get his guitar. He realizes that the guitar is not there anymore. Lo and behold, he goes to the church, and his father has his guitar on an altar. Now, in the film, it doesn't show like candles on the altar or anything like that, but he doesn't have it like at his podium where he's standing. He puts it off to the side on a table. And if you're in spirituality, a lot of times a way to hide your spiritual practices, right? The church, there was a lot of spiritual people in the church, but they had to hide their spiritual practices for one reason or another. They had to layer it. So he puts it on, like, you know, when you walk into someone's house and there's like a hallway table. It's not really an end table. You can call it entertainment center or whatever. But typically those are used as the entry point. You usually put them, if it's behind you, it's like your protection. So when there's like a table or something that you use behind you, you're like, whatever you put there is protecting you, right? Some people may put their Bible on there or whatever. You may walk into someone's home and they have like a Bible or whatever if they're religious. So essentially he takes his guitar, he puts it on that, and he stands at his podium. And then his son says pretty much, he sees his guitar, but he don't like directly ask him head on. He's more like, hey, you know, I'm going X, Y, and Z. I think he says he's going somewhere, or they exchange some words, and then it's not hostile though. So he goes over there, grabs his guitar, and his dad says, you need to give that up. So he warns him he needs to give that up. And his son ignores him, right? Of course, he's not going back and forth with his dad. On his way out the door, he says, if you keep on doing this, then the devil's going to follow you home. Now, immediately when I heard that, I said, oh my God. Yes, baby. Yeah. Can you close the fridge? Huh? When I'm done, I'll go outside with you. Close the fridge door. When I saw that, I was like, oh my God, he cursed his own son. That's how powerful the word is, vibration is. So here you are in your grown age as a big man, talking to your son that is willing to do not only what you ask of him, but for himself as well. And you fix your mouth to say, if and then. When someone states an if and then hypothesis over your life, they are casting a spell. And he did that at the church door on his way out as he turned his back, which is like the Ten of Swords experience, because you pretty much you threw daggers. So symbolically, I feel like he casted that curse over his own son because he couldn't control him. The comforts of the first 6, which is dependency, you go from the chakras of the root, right, which is our most survival instincts. Then you go to the sacral chakra, which is our desires. And then you go to the solar plexus. So here you are, the level of consciousness, right? I'm saying a 3D perspective. A lot of religious people have a 3D stuck perspective, and they're unable to go beyond. They're unable to go beyond the, what's that thing called? The solar plexus. So after the solar plexus is the heart chakra. So they're unable to be empathetic, which is what the heart chakra. Is it loud? Why y'all didn't tell me? It's okay, y'all, if it's loud, because I can't hear myself. Or turn your volume down, because I didn't want to mess with it. But anyway, like I was saying, after that situation, you okay? No, you're fine, baby. So after that situation, who is that? I lost my train of thought. Who is this person? Yes, after that situation happened, then the vampire appears. So I feel as if the pastor conjured, when he cast that spell over his son, when he said those words, he pretty much called in, he made like a bounty, a spiritual bounty, like, this is my son, I have ownership of him, right? Which is the first bond of dependency that was given to enslave you psychologically. He says, so out of nowhere, the vampire appears. And I feel as if Remick was like a spiritual bounty. So you know how like the spiritual community will say like, oh, they call on this God or they call on that deity to come in and like get their revenge or make something happen for them. That's exactly what I feel like happened in that situation. And I feel like this movie was the first depiction where they showed you how in a religious sector, how they conjure up their spirits. He did. He fell from the sky. And I feel like he took on a body. Like he conjured up exactly what it is. And if you notice that, I think it was the church. You know how they say Stockholm syndrome? So like the church and religion has Stockholm syndrome. The religion was given to those as a way to control them, which is why the belief systems are laws that governs your actions, because the operating system that was given to them was control. Which is why we have movies that depict that, even in like Nat Turner, how he was told, hey, if you go and you preach this, you get to go from plantation to plantation, and you get to, but we want you to spread this like it's a good thing. And it didn't feel natural to him because he was able to see that it wasn't natural. This movie, I feel like, showed that in a very small way. They didn't dramatize it, but it was very subtle. Because just because you see Annie who's using herbs and different things like that, the power of sound, the power of light, the power of the book that you read, how you wield it can break, or it can kill, or it can, give life. It can give life or it can destroy. And I feel like that's exactly what he did. He was trying to break his son's spirit. Because one of the cultural things, not the cultural things, but one of the religious things is breaking of the spirit. Breaking of the spirit is pretty much why they made the scriptures of the rod and correction, and how to break someone of that spirit that wants to be rebellious. So Sammy is essentially the protagonist because he's the rebel. He's the fool. He's the one that doesn't want to conform. When I saw Remick, I noticed that he was in awe with Sammy. Like, he was mesmerized by Sammy's gift. What you want? You got food? You can have it. Yeah. Who is it? Remick. I feel like the dad conjured Remick, but I also feel like religion, the Hierophant, represents the agreement that was made with Remick. I feel like Remick and the church are kind of like the same thing. It's just a little bit differently. They're all codependent on each other. The only person that was able to experience true freedom was Sammy. And that's because he was interdependent on himself and his relationship with a higher power, or his ancestors, or his spirit. What's up, Wells of Wisdom? Because it made me ask myself, and I kept asking this over and over and over again, why, if Remick wanted to just go there and destroy everybody, he could. But if you ever notice in the film, he doesn't rush in. He doesn't take control. He creates the illusion that you have a choice. But when we see the vultures on the top of the house, it symbolizes that no matter what, when they said everybody's gonna die, they meant it. Everybody gonna die tonight. But I feel like they had a spiritual death. Yes, in the movie they had a physical death, but this movie is this channel message. What I'm explaining is more from a symbolic standpoint. It's more from a symbolic standpoint. And the journey that I got to experience from my perspective, so seeing it through my eyes, that's how it all metabolized. He seemed like he wanted their knowledge before doing anything else. Yeah. But you saw how old the coins that he had? he was duplicating something. I feel like when Rhythmic saw Sammy, I think he saw himself. Because if you notice that everybody in the movie were trauma bonding. And the way that Remick was talking to everyone to pretty much tempt them to consider or to persuade them, he was using, hey man, I'm just like you. This happened, colonization happened to my people too. So any foreign object has to start to try to mimic and blend in and look like you. So if you notice, they were outside the juke joint, trying to practice their singing and like prove like, hey, I'm a singer too. We just want to do what you do. And so that type of socializing and the fact that there were so many play on words, just the same way that the vampires came to the door and they knew they had to be invited in. They kept saying it in so many different ways to get in. Like, oh man, they were just saying it in so many manipulative ways. But at the same time, it was like your conscience kick in. And that's where I feel like smoke represents the subconscious, because that smoke and who was it? Smoke and Sammy was like the last two in the scene for that clip, but for that scenario. And I feel like the reason why is because I feel like Sammy was trying to find his voice. And he had his opportunity to express himself. And I feel like Smoke was the reliable twin. He was he was a soldier. He was a reliable twin. He was that type of father figure that Sammy didn't have. And he was also a father figure to everybody, even the little girl at the shop. He was like, don't just take a negotiate, you got to negotiate. So he was teaching everybody how to, he was kind of like being there for everybody, but he also was a disciplinarian. And so he had no problem lighting you up. That was yes, and that's the bonds of the culture. That's the bonds of when you take people that have had to be dependent on another person for their basic needs and necessities, and you tell them wake up and perceive something that's light years away from them. That movie allowed the lowest of vibration to feel seen and heard. So whether you're at the root chakra and you're in those dense situations, you're going to feel as if someone sees you. You're going to feel as if you feel a representation on a soul level. The dynamic that Slack had, that's why I say he's the root chakra, was because he had like this burning desire where he didn't want, like, mind over heart type of situation. He kept pushing Mary away, but they were like hot for each other. They were hot for each other. And that right there is how he ended up. But I feel like even he was struggling. What kept him was his family bond to his cousin. What kept him from was his cultural bond, right? We're not supposed to date someone outside your race. Then you had the bond that also binded him where I can't leave my brother, he don't like you. So now your family member is keeping you from the person that you want to be with. And then he had the fact that he don't have money and that his life is already, his money, which is stability, right? his money and his lifestyle didn't promote her the life that she wanted. That's why he wanted her to marry the white man, and she did. But that's not the life that she wanted. She just wanted him. It didn't matter if they were. It was like Bonnie and Clyde type of energy. That's Stack and Mary. But one of the things that Remick said to Mary was that she had an emptiness inside of her that money couldn't even satisfy. And that's when it clicked for me. Okay, you're describing a primal dependent level of consciousness that requires another person to feel whole, that requires something, money, family, relationships, to feel connected to something, and that be the motivation. So in that dynamic, yeah, I saw that. Then with the dynamic of the religion, I feel like the bond between, I feel like his father was passive aggressive and a hypocrite. You know, and that's mainly because he may not have hit Sammy with like his physical hand like his brother did the twins, but he hit differently. He did more psychological manipulation. He used the taskmaster's approach of control through religion to get to have the type of lifestyle he wanted to have, and he wanted Sammy to participate. And that's my cue. So, I know that's a lot. Um, Ultimately, I feel like the message from the movie is against all odds, adversity, spiritual attacks, whatever it is that you may have to endure in order to experience a 5D type of lifestyle that allows you to break your generational bonds, okay, of your genetics and be able to experience your heaven on earth. It comes from you being willing to disappoint a lot of people, and yeah, they will curse you, and yeah, they will attack you, and yeah, they will send every god they believe in to come and collect you. But when you're chosen to come on earth and to have the willpower and your ancestors back you up and your spiritual team back you up, there's really nothing that can stop you. And I think ultimately, if Remick wanted to kill Sammy, he could have. When he had Sammy by the neck, by the chokehold, after he scratched him, you're going to get scarred, but the weapons won't prosper. When he had him by the neck, and Sammy started quoting scriptures, because he was like, let me find it. I'm not really, I might be a preacher boy, but I'm not really into that type of stuff. But if maybe it might work on you. That's the type of attitude he had. Like, our Father. He's like, should I try this? Will that help? And then he's like, Remix, he's like, oh God. He's saying it with him at this point, because he's like, la 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 la. And then he pretty much starts baptizing him in the water, dunking his head. Like, wake up, wake up. And I feel like Remick, he played that role really, really well. And I feel like movies as well, like The Matrix, really, like, The Matrix taught us that fighting against change, or fighting against the antagonist, or fighting against the situation, all you're going to do is spend the rest of your life fighting and running, fighting and running, fighting and running when you feel triggered. But when you remain secure in yourself, when he absorbed Agent Smith, that was his rite of passage. In the Matrix, he experienced his own rite of passage. That's why he was the one. And I feel like this is another great example of Sammy being depicted as being the one to break those chains of his genes, of his forefathers, and him saying, yeah. Because, one of the things that you're going to always experience on a spiritual journey is everybody tell you, oh, you got to be dependent on, you can't do everything by yourself. You need family. You need religion. You need this. And it's not saying that you don't need those things, but when you're interdependent, you're okay with being the person responsible to heal yourself. And that's why I said centers is about descending within yourself, going within yourself, doing the work so you can ER, so you can grow and heal those genetics inside of you. So I feel like it was the perfect time to do that. Like this, I feel like when they released the movie, it was like the perfect time to release it. It was just emotional. It was emotional, and I feel like it's supposed to be. For who it's supposed to be. But really, that's it. That's all. That's just my little tidbit. I get the conversation as I can get this movie out my mind. I can get this movie out my mind. And if I think of anything more, or you guys watch it and you come back, drop something in the comments after the live stream. Let me know what your thoughts are. What you saw. How deep did you go down the rabbit hole? Okay. I love you guys. Y'all have a wonderful weekend. Bye, y'all. Bye, Miss Eloise.